Well, good morning. This is Todd Green again. We're here with another video series, here with Joe Virkler. He's our IT coordinator, computer resource manager, the man who handles our technology here at school. So, Mr. Virkler, we've been working on cell phone policy and those kind of things over the course of the summer, and that's ready to go. Based upon what the state requires. But when we worked through this process, and the book that we read was Anxious Generation, we really learned that it's not so much about compliance, it's about there's a reason why this is important. I think we'll hit some of those topics, but why don't we first just kind of give us a little background of who you are and why you're here at Beaver River and what you do here.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Joe Virkler. I've been with Beaver River for 11 years as the computer resources manager. Prior to that, I worked in healthcare for a few years and for a private company for a few years before that, all in IT support and management roles. So the big piece of what I do for the school is make sure that both staff and students have a working device in their hands that empowers them to be able to do their job, or for the students to be able to learn, and that we have internet and network connection to all those devices. Also, we work on all the printers, the doors, security cameras, a little bit of everything. Phones, yes. Yep. So
anything technology related kind of falls in your area at some point, somehow, right?
Yes, anything with a circuit board and a power switch is generally lands on our desks.
Goes your way? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you've been here for a little while, been a few years, probably.
Yeah,
How many years?
11.
11 years?
Yeah.
So over those 11 years, technology has changed, right? And if we were to talk more about, let's first talk about technology in school and how that's changed over time, what that's looked like, and then maybe we can hit personal devices a little bit. So, floor's yours.
So technology in school. So when I was in 4th grade, Beaver River put computers in the backs of all the classrooms, grades 3 through 12, I believe.
Okay.
So it's 4 computers in the back of every classroom. Huge investment. If you were to adjust for inflation, it would be over $500,000 investment if we were to spend that kind of money today. And this was in the mid-90s.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of Beaver River entering into widely deployed technology across the school. You know, not just a little lab somewhere, something as a novelty, but this is actually something that we're going to use. That was also the time when we started doing network logins. Staff, and actually even at that time, students had an email account. The student email accounts faded by the wayside for a time. But in the late 90s, students did actually have email accounts and had network logins, all those things. And so the next evolution to that was we began to have computer labs throughout the school.
Okay.
So in the 2002 capital project, there were 2 large computer labs upstairs as part of that, as well as a smaller one in the library. There was also another one downstairs in the technology room, and then another smaller one on the elementary side. And additionally, along the way, a couple carts of laptops were added in, one for elementary, one for middle high. And so when I started here 11 years ago, that was the landscape. Every teacher had a laptop. There were 3 desktops at that point in the back of each classroom, and there were 5 labs with anywhere from 18 to 29 computers in any particular lab. So we had about 400 devices that students could use, but you had to actually get up and move somewhere to go find them. The big deal was, even with the shared carts, a teacher had to sign it out and roll the cart to the room, or they had to sign out a lab and walk their class up to the lab. We used to have binders and then later shared calendars where teachers would come and scribble in their names, saying when they needed it. And it was difficult if you were, say, an English teacher and you needed a room 1st period, 3rd period, and 8th period on 3 different days 1, 3, and 5 or something like that. And all of a sudden there's a science teacher that wants it at the same time. Right? There were a lot of conflicts, and there was a challenge in staff consistently getting access to the rooms to see a project all the way through. We're no longer a novelty, we're a utility. It's having the expectation that there's an internet connection for a staff member is no different than the expectation there's electricity when they flip their light switch.
Now it's a tool.
Right. When you walk in the morning, you flip the switch and you flip the light switch in your room, expect the lights to come on. A staff member opens their laptop, expects that there will be internet, expects that it will perform. Today, where we sit, we have 1 computer lab left in the building, and that's a very specialized lab. that's not even available to sign up for general. So almost 40 years ago to today.
It's in the hands of almost every student.
Right, in the hands of every student, and actually because security cameras, doors, phones, everything are on our computer network, we routinely have over 1,000 devices communicating simultaneously within the building on our computer network.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, huge shift.
So every student pretty much has a device up after grade 3,
Right.
right? So it's in their hands somehow, either today, and some are take home and some are not, so they
Yeah.
actually can take those devices home and use those because their classroom work has been integrated into our Google network, right?
Correct. Yeah. So with hybrid learning, a few years back, we had to shift the take home down a few grades lower than we would have preferred.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last couple of years, we've been looking at that issue and trying to figure out where to go with that. And this year,
So do students have email addresses now then? I mean, it sounds like they did and then they didn't, but maybe they do now?
yeah. So students do have email addresses. When we begin our journey into Google Apps, we eventually rolled out email addresses to students in grades 6 and above.
Okay.
So we drew a line at elementary. Elementary students predominantly spend they spend the majority of their day with the same teacher. There's really no
Okay.
need for them to email staff members or each other.
So they're able to communicate to their classroom teacher,
Right.
and they communicate to each other.
Yeah, so in the middle school grades 6, 7, and 8, the email is restricted to only email addresses that are at brcsd.org. So that would be other students or staff members.
Okay, so they can only receive an email from a brcsd.org address.
Right.
Okay.
Right. In high school, so grades 9 and above, we do open that up so that they can email anybody with any email address. So they start to get into things like where they begin to communicate with colleges, where they begin to be involved in organizations outside of Beaver River, athletic things, academic things,
Sure.
career readiness sort of things.
There's
So
a need because
Right.
the world has become that way, so
Right.
there is communication outside, and if a parent wanted to email their child, it's possible to do it
yeah, a
through
parent,
their email
right, a
address.
parent could email us
Yep.
in grades 9 and above.
Yep, and a student has a Chromebook, so they'd be able to see that email throughout the day. kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
Okay, so that's just one method of communication to students. That makes sense, yep.
Yep.
So we've talked about school tools, right? All the stuff that we have available to our students and what they can use.
Yeah.
Obviously this year students are going to have their personal devices available to them from bell to bell. Start the first period of the day to the end of the period of the day. They should, if they have it in school, it should be locked away in their locker. But prior to this year, what access did students have as well? That we would have. Could they get on the wireless here?
No, so we have never had a bring your own device program for students.
Okay.
If students were on the Wi-Fi, it's because they obtained someone's password illicitly or found some method that wasn't approved to be on during the school day. Now to be clear, at 3:30, a guest network turns on and remains on until midnight, and then it's on for the entire weekend.
Okay.
And so when students are here for athletic events or for extracurricular activities in the evenings, there is Wi-Fi access. Whether you're a student, community member, whoever, if you're in our building in the evening, you can have Wi-Fi access, and that's fine and that's good.
Mm-hmm.
We know that it's Beaver Falls and cell service is terrible, and then when you go inside a brick building, it's that much worse.
Gotcha. Yep.
And so, but during the school day, students have never had an expectation of being able to connect personal devices to our Wi-Fi.
So I would imagine parents would have maybe texted their student, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock at the pool doors, something like that, to talk to their students. What systems do we have in place to get those messages to students now, without their phones?
Yeah.
Which we probably always had.
So, we alluded to it earlier in a conversation with email. Any high school student has a working email address. That is absolutely an option. The one thing I will say about email is the other security tool that we didn't get a chance to talk about before. We do have monitoring specifically on email that flags out inappropriate conversations or conversations that allude to anything harmful or dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're using school's email, it is monitored.
Okay.
And so keep all, I would hope everybody would keep the conversations appropriate anyway, but just to throw that out there.
That's another monitoring tool.
Right, there is a monitoring tool specifically on email and specifically watching what takes place in that world.
But there's obviously other ways to communicate, even if students are outside that grade level or in 9 through 12. So what would those be?
Yeah, so the communication at that point shifts to communication between a parent and a staff member. So the phone system is still an option.
Pick up the phone, call.
Pick up the phone and pick up the phone, call one of the offices, leave a message that way. Our classrooms all do have a phone. That being said, during the school day, if you call a classroom phone, it will go straight to voicemail. Mm-hmm. And so our educators get 3 minutes between the bells, so sometimes voicemails aren't checked as often during the school day for that reason.
Is that an outside phone call goes directly
Correct.
to voicemail?
Correct.
But an internal phone
Right.
call?
If you needed to speak to a teacher, the office could, at their discretion, forward a call in and it would go.
Okay.
But if you call from outside to a classroom, it's going to go straight to voicemail during the day. We don't want to disrupt the classroom. Mm-hmm. If they're in the middle of a quiz, if they're in the middle of something that can't be disrupted or shouldn't be.
Sure.
And so, additionally, Parent Square is always an option to send a Parent Square message, either to one of the offices or to a teacher. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or email to the one of the offices or teacher as well. So it's phone, email, and Parent Square are the 3 platforms that we offer.
Yeah. And if I was to probably prioritize those, if there was something you really need to get your child to know, I think a phone call is probably the best way.
Yeah.
That would, and then you're going to talk to somebody directly, and if it is some voicemail in that office, there are other offices to call to make sure you get a hold of somebody to get that message to their child, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 How about students contacting their parents? On a day-to-day basis, there might be a need. You know, when my son was in school, his trumpet tended to not make its way to school somehow, so he would need his trumpet brought home. Now obviously 9 through 12 they can send an email, but do students have access to landlines and phones in our building?
So, in the high school office, there is a phone on the wall right by the door that is solely for student use.
Yep.
So they can come in and ask Ms. Escudero permission to use the phone, and as long as that's not tied up and there's nothing else going on in there where that would be in the way, they can use that phone.
Okay.
So we have a lockdown notification system here that your students have experienced at some point during lockdown drills. Part of what that does is much like a fire alarm automatically notifies a monitoring center, who in turn calls the fire department. This does the same thing. The monitoring center would call law enforcement and notify them that we went into a lockdown. So if that situation were to occur, the monitoring center has already been notified before anybody picks up a phone from anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, in the event of a situation like that.
So that's in the immediate.
So that's immediately,
right?
Right. There's an immediate notification that nobody, that there is no human intervention. It just happens. Mm-hmm. And then as well, our protocol will be somebody from an office will probably follow up to that and start giving more information. But there is a challenge a few different ways with that. Number one, going back to limited cell service in the area, the more, each cell phone tower can only handle so many simultaneous calls. And so if suddenly 200 students grab their phone and all call 911, that creates a problem on the cell network. It also creates a problem. So Lewis County Dispatch has typically 2 dispatchers on duty at once. And that's to handle fire, EMS, law enforcement, and the jail. And so again, if you think about the availability of those resources, and suddenly 100 people, inundating the 911 center with calls about an incident here, right? That actually delays the response and has a negative impact on the outcome. Those dispatchers need to be free to talk with incoming law enforcement, to stage EMS, to do all these different things that they need to get done. And so 100 people calling them about an incident that they're aware of actually is not as beneficial as you would think. And again, it seems counterintuitive, right? Like you would think the more information, the better, but because on that end of things, resources are limited in a rural area like ours, actually once they get that notification, it's better if they're not inundated with dozens of phone calls.
Sure, yep, so that's a call to 911 center.
Right,
You know, I would think that a student would a parent would want to know, is my child okay? Is my child okay? That's going to be their question. We have protocols internally, you know,
Right.
through our safety plan and what that looks like. You know, obviously, if an incident happens, we're going to deal with the incident while it's happening and take place. If it does happen, there are known to be short. Less than a minute is often what happens within those time frames.
Right.
And then it is our quick assessment of who was involved, those kind of things. And we have communication protocols. We have emergency calls through Parent Square that we can let people know that this is what happened, this is what we have going on, those kind of things. Obviously, we'll be in the middle of that and trying to get that information out, but we need to make sure we're working on the system internally, making sure people are safe here first before we get that information out. Students with phones, would that cause any problem in that situation at all?
Yeah, so
Kind of the immediately after and then the next hour or so afterwards.
yeah, so in that situation, it becomes very critical that every student and staff member are paying attention to whatever directions are being given and have their full attention on doing what they need to do to ensure the safety of everyone. And again, having half the people on devices frantically texting, half paying attention to the person in the room giving directions actually takes away from their ability to listen and understand the directions that are being given in that moment that are for their safety and are to bring the safest end of the incident possible.